You say you want more, a better life, a better version of yourself, a future that doesn't look like the past. You've told yourself the story 100 times, that this time it's real, this time you'll follow through, this time you'll finally begin. You wake up with fire in your chest. It feels different, urgent, alive. You stare at the ceiling, eyes wide, mind racing. Today's the day, you whisper. You can almost feel it. The person you were meant to be. Focused, sharp, disciplined. The kind of person who gets up early, does the work, and never looks back. You picture them walking into a room and owning it. You see the business, the body, the peace, the legacy. It's all there. So you plan, you prepare, you write the goals, you set the alarms, you study productivity, manifestation, grit. You scroll motivational content until your chest aches with possibility. And yet, you're still here, still stuck, still hesitating, still tired for no reason. You crave movement, but default to stillness. You chase clarity, but run from discomfort. You say you want to win, yet you delay the first step. What's really stopping you? It's easy to say you're lazy, that you lack discipline, that you're just a procrastinator. But what if that's not the truth? What if the real reason you're stuck is buried much deeper? Carl Jung didn't believe in surface-level answers. He saw something far more dangerous than laziness, a psyche at war with itself. You think all of you wants to succeed. It doesn't. Part of you wants to stay invisible, stay safe, stay untested. That part whispers just loud enough to hold you back, and just quiet enough that you think it's your fault. It's not laziness, it's inner conflict. And until you understand the war beneath your ambition, you'll keep calling your survival mechanisms weakness. You want the truth? Then you'll have to go where most people never dare, to the part of you you've spent your whole life avoiding. You've made it this far, so ask yourself, are you really lazy? Or are you just afraid of becoming who you're meant to be? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you won't just understand why you're stuck. You'll understand who inside you is keeping you there. The version of you that's hiding, the version you've been avoiding. Don't look away now. This is where it starts to get real. Let's begin. You live in a world obsessed with ambition. Everyone's chasing something. Six-figure incomes, dream jobs, viral fame, passive income, inner peace. Ambition is the currency of self-worth. If you're not striving, you're wasting time. If you're not building, you're falling behind. So you post your goals. You make your vision board. You wake up early. You romanticize the grind. You declare your ambition to the world like a badge of honor. I want more. And yet, nothing really happens. Your journals fill with plans that never reach the real world. Your browser overflows with productivity hacks. Your calendar looks impressive until you ignore it for the 5th day in a row. You feel productive for planning. You feel inspired while scrolling motivational reels. You feel busy while reading about success, but none of it moves you forward. It just feels like it does. This is the trap. Modern ambition is often a performance. Not real drive, not real movement, just a constant loop of simulated progress. You chase the feeling of ambition more than the work it requires. You mistake stimulation for growth. You confuse motion with momentum, and society rewards you for it. You're told you're doing well as long as you look like you're trying. A curated morning routine is applauded. A well-lit workspace feels like achievement. Another saved quote gives you a tiny dopamine hit, just enough to stop you from noticing that nothing's actually changing. Are you ambitious? Or are you just in love with the idea of being ambitious? It's not your fault. You were trained for this. The system doesn't want you to finish what you start. It wants you in a constant state of trying without ever becoming. Because ambition without execution is profitable. You'll buy more courses, more books, more apps. You'll keep watching the next video that promises to finally unlock your potential. All while avoiding the thing that matters most, action. Real ambition isn't sexy, it's terrifying. It demands discomfort, sacrifice, delayed gratification. It forces you to confront the parts of yourself that are unprepared, insecure, unsure. So your mind protects you. It gives you escape routes disguised as preparation. It lets you feel almost ready forever. Carl Jung would say this isn't just a bad habit, it's a signal from your unconscious, a defense mechanism. A deeper part of you is resisting, not because it doesn't care, but because it's protecting you from something you haven't yet named. And that's where we begin to see the real enemy, not laziness, but a fragmented self, split between what you show the world and what you're truly afraid of. There's a side of you you never talk about. You dress it up, bury it, pretend it doesn't exist. You keep it hidden under ambition, politeness, and control. You put on your best self for the world, the driven self, the kind self, the productive self. But beneath it, something darker waits. Carl Jung called it the shadow. Not evil, not inherently bad, just rejected. The parts of you that don't fit the image you've built, the fear you won't admit, the anger you deny, the envy you pretend not to feel, the laziness you try to shame into silence. You don't get rid of it by ignoring it. You just make it more powerful. Every time you chase the light, discipline, achievement, success, your shadow grows behind you. Every time you post your goals, your shadow whispers, "What if you don't make it?" Every time you plan your comeback, your shadow remembers all the times you failed. You call it resistance, you call it self-sabotage, you call it laziness. But what if it's none of those? What if your so-called laziness is not weakness, but protest? A part of you doesn't want to succeed. A part of you fears what happens if you finally step into your power. If you get visible, if you grow. That part of you remembers every time ambition led to disappointment, every time hope led to humiliation, every time you gave everything and still lost. So it speaks through your hesitation, your fatigue, your numbness, not because it hates you, but because it's trying to protect you from shame, from risk, from being seen and judged. And so you stall. You don't take the leap. You take another nap. You convince yourself it's not the right time. You stay safe, but unsatisfied. This isn't about being lazy. This is about being afraid of what lies on the other side of growth. Because it's not just success that's scary, it's the death that comes before it. The death of who you used to be, the loss of excuses, the collapse of your familiar identity. Sometimes it's easier to fail quietly than to change loudly. You self-sabotage not because you're broken, but because part of you believes staying stuck is safer than being seen. Jung understood this deeply. He believed the only way out wasn't through more motivation or stricter routines. It was through facing the shadow, facing yourself, not the curated self, not the one you show others, but the one hiding underneath, the one who's tired, angry, scared, bitter, arrogant, jealous, lost. The self that's been screaming in silence while you call it laziness. You carry within you both the urge to rise and the urge to run. And every time you choose to ignore the second, it doesn't disappear. It digs deeper. And maybe that's why you haven't moved. Not because you're incapable, but because part of you doesn't want to. Until you confront that part, no plan, no goal, no routine will ever be enough. The war isn't out there, it's in you. You've spent years trying to overpower your darker traits. You've called them enemies. You've fought them with affirmations, discipline, schedules. You've told yourself, if I just try harder, I'll kill this weakness once and for all. But it keeps coming back. The fear, the doubt, the paralysis. You try to bury your laziness. You shame your hesitation. You pretend you're not afraid. You keep slicing away the parts of you that don't fit your ideal self. And it never works, because what you reject doesn't vanish. It mutates. It grows in the dark. Until one day it takes control, not with a scream, but with a whisper, a single thought echoing in the back of your mind. What's the point? Carl Jung believed that true growth doesn't come from war. It comes from integration. The shadow isn't something to defeat, it's something to meet. Not with judgment, not with fear, but with understanding. Your laziness might not be a flaw. It might be a boundary, a signal, a message from the part of you that's been running on empty, screaming for rest while the rest of you claps for hustle. Your fear of failure might not be cowardice. It might be the echo of a time you tried and were laughed at, or left behind, or punished for daring to dream. You don't fear falling. You fear remembering what it felt like to fall. And maybe, just maybe, your deepest fear isn't failure at all. Maybe your real fear is your own potential. Because if you succeed, everything has to change. Your identity, your relationships, your excuses. Success kills the story you've been telling yourself. That you're stuck, that you're small, that you're not ready. And that story is comforting, even if it's painful. The only way out is not through more resistance, it's through reconciliation. You sit with your shadow, you listen, you ask it, why are you here? What are you protecting me from? That's what the great minds eventually did. Van Gogh didn't paint in spite of his madness, he painted through it. Jung himself wrote his most profound work during his psychological breakdown. Frederick Douglass found his voice not by avoiding rage, but by channeling it. Virginia Woolf translated inner chaos into literary genius. These weren't victories over the shadow. These were collaborations. They didn't erase their darkness, they integrated it. And that's what you must do. You stop labeling yourself as broken. You stop apologizing for your hesitation. You stop seeing your resistance as failure. You start seeing it as a door to the parts of you that have been waiting to be heard, not so they can take over, but so they can finally let go. This is the turning point. Not another battle, not another war, but a truce with yourself. And from that place, ambition becomes something else entirely, not a performance, but a homecoming. You've worn the label for so long, you almost believe it. Lazy, unmotivated, undisciplined, a wasted talent. You've repeated it in your mind like a sentence passed down without trial. You punish yourself for what you didn't do, for the time you wasted, for the things you could have been by now. But that word, lazy, it's a mask. It hides more than it reveals. What you call laziness might actually be grief. Grief for the time you lost, for the childhood you didn't get, for the moments no one saw you, even when you were trying so hard to be seen. It might be fear, not just of failing, but of succeeding, of stepping into a life so unfamiliar, it feels like betrayal to everything and everyone you've known. It might be misalignment, a silent protest against paths that were never yours to walk, careers you didn't choose, relationships you outgrew, dreams that belonged to someone else. And often it's trauma, unseen, unspoken, unprocessed. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. And when survival has been your only mode for years, rest feels dangerous. Movement feels impossible. Jung didn't ask people to try harder. He asked them to go deeper, to stop judging the symptom and understand the cause, to see procrastination not as a failure, but as communication. Your inner world isn't broken. It's trying to speak. You've just never been taught to listen. You don't need more motivation. You need integration. You need your scattered pieces to finally sit at the same table. The moment that happens, when the ambition stops fighting the fear, when the drive stops shaming the doubt, something shifts. You no longer chase success like it's outside of you. You become it. Not with force, not with hype, but with clarity, with peace. It feels like breathing for the first time after holding it in for years. Not because you finally beat your inner demons, but because you finally embraced them. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not lazy. You are becoming, slowly, unevenly, beautifully. And that is enough. You tell yourself you're afraid to fail, that the reason you don't move forward, the reason you hesitate, overthink, distract yourself, is fear of falling flat, of being judged, of not being good enough. But what if that's not it? What if the real fear isn't falling, but rising? What if you're not afraid of being nobody, you're afraid of what happens if you actually become somebody? Success isn't just a gain, it's a death. The death of the current version of you. The comfortable, familiar, safe self who knows how to live with almost. Carl Jung believed that the true self, the deep, authentic self, doesn't want just success. It wants wholeness, to be complete, integrated, real, not curated for the world, not filtered through fear, but whole. And to become whole, something must die: the ego. The ego is who you think you are, the image you've crafted, the role you've been rehearsing. It's built to protect you, not grow you. So when growth calls, when real change knocks, the ego doesn't open the door. It barricades it. You start feeling tired, suddenly overwhelmed. You tell yourself you need more time, more clarity, more certainty. But underneath that noise is a deeper truth. You're not scared of losing. You're scared of transforming. Because to rise means to let go, to shed the skin you've lived in for years, to disappoint people who liked you weak, to outgrow circles that once felt like home, to admit that the life you've been living was too small for who you're meant to be. So you cling to mediocrity, not because you lack ambition, but because mediocrity feels safe. It doesn't challenge your relationships. It doesn't threaten your routines. It doesn't demand you to become someone your past self wouldn't recognize. What if you did rise? Who would you lose? What comfort would you destroy? What responsibility would you inherit? You say you want success, but does every part of you agree? Or is there a part that's quietly sabotaging your progress, not to harm you, but to preserve the world it knows? This isn't laziness, it's grief, the grief of becoming. Because when you become more, something else gets left behind. And sometimes, that's harder than failure. You've been taught that the answer is to push harder, discipline more, wake up earlier, grind through the fog. Stack routines on routines until the version of you dream about finally shows up. But that version never does, because what you're chasing isn't hiding in your calendar. It's buried in your unconscious. Carl Jung warned us, what you refuse to face within yourself doesn't disappear. It returns, louder, angrier, more desperate, until one day it stops whispering and starts sabotaging. He called it the shadow, not to scare you, but to wake you up. Because without integrating the shadow, you're not stuck. You're looped. You'll repeat the same patterns in new disguises. Procrastination dressed as burnout. Perfectionism masked as preparation. Fear posing as logic. You think it's just a phase. You think the next book, the next podcast, the next planner will finally fix you. But you're not broken. You're blocked. Not by laziness, but by parts of yourself you've abandoned. Parts that are still trying to speak. That's what the shadow is. Not a monster. Not a weakness. A messenger. A part of you that stopped being heard. You don't escape it by running. You escape it by listening. So stop asking how to hustle more. Start asking why you resist, why you shut down right before the breakthrough, why the same voice shows up every time you try to rise, why comfort feels more like a cage than a home. This isn't about optimizing your to-do list. This is about reclaiming your whole self. You say you want more, then go where no one else dares to go, into yourself, into the memories you buried, the parts of you you judged, the dreams you gave up too early, the emotions you've been too afraid to feel. Because the person you want to become is not out there. They're already inside you. They're just locked behind the door you've avoided your whole life. The door marks shadow, and behind it is everything you've been seeking: clarity, purpose, movement, peace. But you don't get there by force. You get there by courage. The kind that doesn't look like shouting or sprinting. The kind that looks like sitting down in silence and saying, I'm ready to know who I really am. Not the perfect version, the real one, the whole one, the one who is finally free. You're not lazy, you're not broken. You're in conflict with the parts of yourself you've never been taught to face. And now, you know where to look. Not outside, not in hustle culture, not in endless motivation, but within, in the quiet, in the resistance, in the shadow. So if this made something click, if it made you feel seen, then this journey is just beginning. Subscribe if you're ready to keep going. Comment below. Tell me which part hit you the hardest. And like this video if you felt the truth rising somewhere inside you. Because the deeper we go, the freer you become.